You're a disgrace to our name. Those were my father's exact words, sharp, cold, and final. He didn't shout, he didn't even look angry. He said it like he was cutting a rope that had been holding me to him my whole life. I still remember the echo of his voice bouncing off the marble floor, the way everyone froze, my mother, my sister, even the servants who pretended not to hear. That night, I stood outside my own home, holding my torn wedding invitation and wondering how love could turn into humiliation so quickly. My father, Thomas More, believed that reputation was everything. And I was his biggest embarrassment. He told people I'd ruined his legacy. But what they never knew was, his perfect legacy was built on lies, favoritism, and secrets that could destroy more than just his pride. I walked away that night, but I didn't walk away defeated. I walked away silent, broken, and waiting. Because the same man who called me a disgrace would one day have to stand in front of everyone and beg for my forgiveness. And that day came faster than he ever imagined. People always said my family was perfect. Every Sunday, our house smelled of roasted herbs and pride. My father, Thomas More, sat at the head of the long mahogany table like a king guarding his empire. My mother, Linda, always smiled, but her eyes never did. My sister, Sophia, the golden child, sat beside him, soaking in all the attention I used to dream of. I was there too, always there, but somehow invisible. I laughed when they laughed, served the dishes before being asked, and waited for the smallest nod of approval that never came. My father often said, "A daughter's worth is seen in how she represents a family." I spent years trying to be worthy of that sentence. But no matter what I did, Sophia was the one he showcased to the world, the one he called my pride. I still remember the night he threw a family dinner for one of his business partners. The table sparkled, everyone dressed in shades of grace. Sophia wore a pearl necklace he bought her that morning. When I complimented it, he smiled and said, "Some jewels are meant for those who make the family shine." He didn't have to say who didn't. At gatherings, relatives whispered, "Sophia is just like her father, refined, respectful." And then, lower, softer, "Elena, she's too independent." Those words stuck to me like stains no one could see but everyone smelled. My mother tried to bridge the distance. Late at night, she'd knock on my door with a soft voice, "He just wants the best for you." But I'd see her wiping tears before she turned away. She lived in the same cage, she just decorated hers with silence. Still, I kept trying. I brought home awards, handled family errands, even helped with Sophia's engagement. I thought if I stood beside her, maybe the light would finally touch me too. But the truth was simple, my family didn't value love, only appearance. When I met Ryan, everything shifted. He wasn't rich or impressive by my father's standards, but he saw me. He made me laugh, something rare in that heavy house. I wanted to introduce him slowly, carefully, believing maybe this time, my father would see how happy I was. But the day I hinted about Ryan, my father's face hardened. "We don't mix with mediocrity, Elena. Don't embarrass yourself." That was the moment I realized, in his eyes, I wasn't his daughter. I was his reflection. And reflections aren't allowed to look different. I smiled through the dinner that night, nodding at jokes I didn't hear. Inside, something started breaking, not loud, not visible, but final. Because beneath the laughter, beneath the shining plates and polished smiles, I could feel it. Something in our family wasn't whole. And soon, the cracks would swallow us all. Part 4, Rising Tension, 550 to 600 words show how neglect slowly turns into open disrespect and emotional cruelty. The narrator experiences public humiliation or visible rejection during family gatherings, events, or celebrations. His patience begins to crumble as his pain turns into silent anger. Add vivid dialogues and moments that make the listener emotionally connect with the narrator's suffering. The tension must build consistently, keeping the audience engaged and uneasy. End this part with a suspenseful sign that something big or irreversible is about to happen. It's strange how silence can be louder than words. After that night, my family didn't just cut me off, they rewrote the story. Within weeks, everyone in our circle knew that I'd walked away in shame, not that I'd been pushed. Aunt Carol made sure of it. She ran off with a man beneath her, she told anyone who would listen. Thomas did the right thing. A father has to protect his dignity. I'd hear about those whispers from distant cousins or through the neighborhood grapevine. Every rumor felt like a stone thrown at my back. At first, I tried to ignore it. Ryan told me, let them talk, Elena. We'll build something better.
And we did.
We rented a small apartment, nothing fancy, but it was ours. I got a job at a local design studio, and for the first time, I felt free. But freedom doesn't erase wounds, it just hides them behind smiles.
Months passed before I saw my family again.
It was at Sophia's engagement party, the one I wasn't invited to. I found out through social media, the pictures glowing with golden lights and perfect smiles. My mother looked radiant, standing beside Sophia and her wealthy fiancé. And my father, he looked younger, happier, as if losing me had lifted a burden.
Still, I went.
I don't even know why, maybe a part of me hoped to see some trace of love left. I arrived quietly, uninvited, in a simple dress. The guards almost didn't let me in until I said, I'm his daughter.
That word felt foreign in my mouth.
The moment I stepped inside, all conversations seemed to pause. My father's face went pale. Sophia looked me up and down and smiled, that cruel, pitying smile. Well, she said, look who finally decided to remember the family she abandoned. I didn't abandon anyone, I said, keeping my voice calm. I just stopped begging for respect.
She laughed. Respect?
You lost that when you walked out. My mother started to come toward me, but my father stopped her with a glance. He turned to me and said, in front of everyone, Elena, this isn't your place anymore.
You've made your choices.
Don't embarrass yourself. The word embarrass, again.
Always that word.
I felt my throat tighten, but I didn't cry. You've built your life on pretending, Dad. Just remember, pretense doesn't last forever. He looked past me, as if I was air. Then he raised his glass to Sophia and said, to my one true pride.
The room erupted in applause.
I stood there, clapping too, not for her, but for the performance.
Because that's all it was.
A grand, glittering lie. When I walked out, Aunt Carol followed me to the gate. You could have had everything, she hissed. But you chose love over status.
And now look at you.
I turned to her and smiled faintly. And one day, you'll look at me again, but not like this. That night, Ryan found me sitting on the porch, staring at my old house glowing in the distance. They'll never see you the way you deserve, he said gently. I looked at him and whispered, then I'll make them see.
Something inside me shifted.
The hurt stopped burning, it started freezing.
Cold, sharp, and deliberate.
Because from that night on, I wasn't waiting for their acceptance anymore. I was waiting for the perfect moment to take it back. And that moment was already closer than anyone knew. I used to think betrayal came with shouting, slammed doors, ugly arguments, broken plates.
But no.
The worst betrayal comes quietly. It arrives wrapped in polite smiles and official envelopes. It had been 6 months since Sophia's engagement when I got the letter. A white envelope, sealed with the Moore family crest, the same one my father used for business deals and wedding invitations. For a moment, I thought maybe it was peace. Maybe he was reaching out. But when I opened it, the words hit like ice. This document confirms the redistribution of assets as per the Moore Family Trust Amendment.
My name wasn't on it.
Not once. Every property, every account, every investment, transferred to Sophia. Even my mother's jewelry, the pieces she'd promised to pass down to both of us, all listed under my sister's name. There was no mention of me, no signature line for acknowledgement. Just erasure. At the bottom, in my father's proud, careful handwriting, was the line that ended whatever fragile hope I had left. Elena Moore has chosen to separate herself from the Moore legacy and shall not be included in future family affairs. I read that sentence over and over until the words blurred. Ryan found me sitting on the floor, the papers scattered like ashes around me. Elena, he whispered, kneeling beside me. You knew they might do something like this. I looked up at him, my voice shaking.
No, Ryan. I knew they'd reject me.
But I didn't think they'd erase me.
4 days after, I couldn't sleep.
Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Sophia wearing my mother's pearls, my father smiling beside her, the same smile he used to give me when I was little. It was like watching someone steal your reflection.
Then came the final cut. My cousin Jake called one morning. He hesitated before speaking.
Elena,
I thought you should know. Your father told everyone at the club that you signed away your share. That you didn't want anything. I felt my stomach drop.
That's a lie.
He sighed. You know how he is.
No one questions Thomas more.
That was it.
My reputation, the one thing he said he was protecting, destroyed by his own words.
Now, I wasn't just forgotten.
I was branded ungrateful. The next week, I tried to see my mother. The guards at the gate told me she was unavailable. I waited outside for hours until Aunt Carol's car pulled up.
She rolled down the window and smiled sweetly. Oh, Elena. Still trying to come back? He doesn't want to see you. You made your choice. Now live with it.
Her voice was syrupy, but her eyes were cruel.
I clenched my fists.
He took everything from me.
She tilted her head. No, dear.
You gave it away the moment you disobeyed him. That was the moment I realized. This wasn't about money.
It was about control.
My father didn't just want me gone. He wanted the world to believe I deserved it. That night, I sat in our small apartment, staring at the legal papers again. I felt something break inside me, not like before, not with tears. This time, it was colder, quieter. Ryan sat beside me, his hand warm on mine.
We can fight this.
Legally.
I shook my head. No.
I'm not fighting for money. Then for what? I looked at him, my voice calm, certain.
For respect.
For the truth. I began collecting everything, old letters, photos, messages, even financial statements I'd once ignored. I started noticing patterns, dates that didn't match, signatures that weren't quite right. My father hadn't just removed me from the will, he'd forged my acknowledgement. I remember sitting there in disbelief, whispering to myself, he didn't just disown me. He made me a liar in front of the law. For the first time in months, I didn't cry. The grief was gone, replaced by a steady, burning focus.
I wasn't the helpless daughter anymore.
I was something else, something my father had created by trying to destroy me. The next morning, I placed all the documents in a box and sealed it. I wrote one word on top in black ink, truth. Ryan watched silently as I hid it away. Elena, he said softly, what are you going to do? I looked up, my voice low but steady. He took everything, my name, my place, my voice. But he forgot one thing. Ryan frowned. What's that? I met his eyes.
He forgot that I learned from him.
How to play his kind of game. Outside, the dawn light hit the window, painting the room in gold and gray, the same colors as our family crest. I traced the edge of the papers with my fingers and whispered, almost to myself.
He thinks he buried me, but he just planted me.
And when I rise again, he'll know exactly what it feels like to lose everything he ever tried to protect. Grief taught me two things: how to feel everything at once, and how to make that feeling steady enough to act. I stopped collapsing into fits of rage and started cataloging it. Every insult, every silence, every forged signature.
Pain became a ledger. I learned to read patterns where others saw only noise.
And slowly, I rebuilt myself from that ledger, quiet, careful, precise. I began with the facts. I copied every legal paper, every letter my mother had hidden, every business statement that didn't add up. I found the dates where transfers had been made and the small signatures that looked almost right, except not. I saved conversations. My father's voice on the phone claiming I walked away, Aunt Carol's thin laughter when she told strangers I'd chosen shame. I recorded meetings where my sister paraded my inheritance like a trophy. Each fragment fit together into a clearer picture, a long, intentional campaign to erase me. Then I built the plan around the one thing my father worshipped most, his reputation. If he wanted the world to believe he was above scandal, I would use that very pedestal to expose the truth. Not out of cruelty, but out of corrected balance. His lies in the open, his fakery stripped away while everyone watched. I wanted him to understand, not privately, but where the applause usually lived. It had to be public and precise. I hired a small, discreet legal consultant who owed me more than money. She owed me fairness. We mapped the chain of forged documents and built a timeline that could not be dismissed as rumor. I reached out to former business partners who had grudges of their own and to a journalist who liked uncomfortable truths. I quietly ensured the people who mattered, investors, family friends, and a few influential guests, would be in the room when the curtain opened. There was risk. I knew he could sue, threaten, or try to shut me down. He could gaslight the crowd, spin the story, or make me out the villain. I thought about the worst case, public disgrace, a courtroom battle, my mother further silenced. It was a dangerous balance, the kind my father had always played when he banked on other people's fear. But there was something else growing inside me, a steadiness that was no longer about proving my worth to him.
It was about reclaiming my name. I rehearsed the moment in my head until it was as clear as breathing.
The montage would begin with his words, the cold line, "You're a disgrace to our name." Then the documents, the dates, the signatures, my mother's hidden notes. The montage would end with the truth, recorded confessions, or at least the paper trail that proved he had rewritten our family's story. If he wants to play with reputations, I'll show him the truth in front of everyone, I told Ryan, sliding the sealed USB across the table.
His hand trembled as he took it. "Are you sure?" he asked. I didn't hesitate. "I'm sure," I said.
This is the only language he respects. I arranged the venue in the same hall where my father had once pronounced his pride. I sent invitations that looked traditional but carried a different weight, a network of allies, a few skeptical journalists, and the man who had taught me how to read the ledger of shame. I found a technician who would play the montage at the exact moment of his greatest applause. Every step felt risky, like walking a thin wire. I practiced my voice, my pauses, how to let silence do the work. I thought about my mother and what she had lost to silence, and that made me steady. I thought about Sophia's pearls and the hollow pride they represented, and that made me precise. On the morning I was meant to put the plan into motion, I sat in the quiet apartment and opened the box with the word truth written on top. The files inside were ordered, labeled, ready. My heart knocked once, slow and certain. Outside, cars began arriving at the hall, laughter, clinking glasses. The world was moving as if nothing had happened. My hand closed over the USB. For a moment I hesitated, feeling every danger press in. Then I slipped the drive into my pocket and walked toward the door. The hall shimmered under gold chandeliers, the same ones that once glowed over my humiliation. The scent of roses and champagne filled the air, laughter tangled with the sound of clinking glasses. It was the night of my wedding, the night my father swore he'd never attend. But pride is a strange thing. He came, dressed in his best gray suit, polished shoes, head held high, because men like Thomas More don't skip an audience. They control it. I watched from across the room as he shook hands, his smile carefully practiced. Sophia stood beside him, the same pearls gleaming on her neck, my mother's pearls. Aunt Carol whispered into her ear, smirking. They looked unbothered, powerful, untouchable. But tonight wasn't theirs. Tonight belonged to the truth. Ryan squeezed my hand. "You're sure you want to do this?" I nodded slowly. He took my voice. "I'm taking back the silence." When the music softened, I stepped onto the small stage. Guests clapped politely, the bride saying a few words, nothing more. I took the microphone, my pulse steady, my voice calm. "Good evening," I began. "Some of you know me as the daughter of Thomas More. Some of you might know me as the one who left. But tonight, you'll know me for who I really am." A faint murmur rippled through the crowd. My father froze mid-sip of champagne. "Elena," he said under his breath, warning in his tone. But I kept going. "I was raised to believe that respect was everything," I continued, the lights soft on my face. "That family name meant honor. But what happens when that name is built on lies?" A projector flickered to life behind me. The screen glowed, the same family crest that had sealed my disinheritance letter. Then came the words, my father's voice, recorded from one of his business calls. "She wanted out." I simply made it official. Gasps echoed. Heads turned. My father stood abruptly. "This is out of context," he shouted. I met his eyes and smiled faintly. "Then maybe the next part will clarify." The screen shifted, legal documents, signatures side by side. His real signature, and the one forged over mine. The audience began whispering, the kind of whisper that carries more weight than shouting. Aunt Carol's face drained of color. Sophia grabbed her father's arm, whispering, "Dad, do something." Then came the final clip, a video of my mother's tearful confession, recorded secretly weeks before. Her voice trembled. He said he'd lose everything if Elena came back. He made me hide her letters. "I'm sorry, my love." The room fell into heavy silence. I felt my heart thundering but my face stayed calm. I turned back to the guests. My father taught me that respect is earned. So tonight, I'm returning the lesson. Thomas took a step forward, his voice cracking. You think humiliating me will make you right?
No, I said quietly.
It will make you honest. He looked around, the crowd that once adored him now staring with judgment and pity. The same people he'd courted for decades were watching him unravel. Turn it off, he barked at the staff, but no one moved. Even the servers froze. For the first time in my life, he had no control. I tried to protect this family, he muttered, his pride collapsing. You've destroyed it. No, I said, my voice steady. You destroyed it the moment you chose reputation over love. My mother stood up then, trembling, but she walked to me and took my hand. Enough, she whispered. Let him face what he's done. My father's shoulders sagged. His eyes met mine, not as a parent, not as an enemy, but as a man who finally saw the ruin of his own making. He turned and left. No words. No defense. Just the quiet sound of shoes on marble and the echo of pride breaking. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then, as the projector faded to black, I whispered into the microphone, more to myself than to them. This is what truth looks like. It doesn't scream. It stands. The hall remained still, every eye wide, every breath held. And then, one by one, they lowered their heads, not out of shame for me, but for him. That night, the Moore name finally meant something honest, because I burned down the lies to make it real. The next morning, the house that once felt like a kingdom stood silent. No phones ringing, no gossip, no laughter pretending to be love. Just silence, heavy, hollow, and honest for the first time. I didn't go back that night. I didn't need to. My revenge wasn't about watching my father crumble. It was about ending the part of me that needed his approval. The truth had already done what years of arguments couldn't. It had leveled the ground between us. 4 days, I heard nothing. Then, one afternoon, there was a soft knock at my door. I opened it to find him, my father, standing there. No suit this time, no polished shoes. Just a tired man with eyes that finally looked human. He held a small box in his hands. These were yours, he said quietly. Inside were my mother's pearls. The same ones he'd given to Sophia. I didn't take them right away. Why now? I asked. He looked down. Because you were right. I built everything on the wrong thing. There was no anger left in me, just a strange calm. All I ever wanted was respect, Dad. Not money, not your name. Just respect. His voice cracked. And you earned it, by doing what I never could. He left after that, leaving the pearls behind. I didn't cry. I just stood there, holding the box, feeling the weight of both loss and peace. A week later, Sophia called. Her tone was different, soft, almost hesitant. He doesn't leave the house anymore, she said. He keeps your photo in his office now. I didn't know what to say, so I said nothing. Some wounds don't need words. Some just need to be left open long enough to remind you of what they taught you. Life became quiet again, but this time the quiet didn't hurt. Ryan and I moved forward, slowly, deliberately. Our home wasn't big or perfect, but it was built on truth. No masks, no performances. Just us. Sometimes, late at night, I'd replay that moment in the hall. The silence, the faces, the weight of truth settling in. I realized something important that night. Revenge doesn't always roar. Sometimes, it simply reveals. People later asked me if I regretted exposing my father. I didn't. Because what I revealed wasn't just his cruelty. It was my strength. My mother visited once after that. She looked older but lighter, like she was finally breathing after years of pretending. She said softly, "You know, Elena, in our family, no one ever spoke the truth. You broke that curse." I smiled. No, Mom. I just remembered what truth sounds like. Before she left, she took my hand and said, "He watches your wedding video every night. The part before the truth came out." I nodded. I didn't hate him anymore. I pitied him. Because the greatest punishment for a man who lives for reputation is losing the ability to lie. That's when I understood. Dignity isn't something someone gives you. It's what's left when everything else is taken away. Respect, I whispered one evening, looking out the window, isn't in the family name. It's in how you carry your scars. And with that, the past finally felt quiet. Not forgotten, just finished.